Coming up on Carolina News, the new Columbia Police Chief was sworn in today. Find out how he plans to help you.
And the search continues today for a man who may have fallen off the Gervais Street Bridge. We have the latest.
Based on the location they gave us with the landmarks they had on the opposite bank, we have an area that we feel that we can search.
If you're looking for something to do this week, the Indie Grits Festival kicks off tonight. We'll show you how this year will be a little different. All this and more next on Carolina News.
Live from the capital city, Carolina News brings you your news first. With breaking news and in-depth reporting. Up-to-the-minute weather. And all your sports news and highlights. It's all here, now, on Carolina News.
Hello and welcome to Carolina News. I'm Kathleen Jacob.
Good afternoon. Thanks for joining us. I'm Emily McDonald. Hundreds gathered as the new city police chief was sworn into office at City Hall today. Brittany, how was the ceremony?
It was great. The new police chief comes to us from Huntington, Virginia, where the crime rate has dropped significantly under his leadership. During the ceremony, he mentions his agenda for Columbia and what he has planned for the future. Take a look.
Constitution of the state and the United States.
Constitution of the state.
The Columbia community celebrated today as the new city police chief was finally sworn in. Chief William "Skip" Holbrook thanked the city for the decision, but also introduced his immediate plan of action.
Management is doing things right. Leadership is doing the right things.
In what he calls his 90-day action plan, he wants to first eliminate the internal problems in the police department.
In the 60 days, we'll start some planning, both as working groups within the police department and our stakeholders in the community, and then we'll implement that plan in the last 90-day portion, and then we'll evaluate that and see where we're at.
Chief Holbrook's wife and family were also there to support him throughout the ceremony, as even his wife pinned his stars to his lapel. Holbrook was selected from a list of many, but City Manager Teresa Wilson said that he was always her top choice and believes that he is the perfect fit.
I feel very confident about his abilities, and he is certainly anxious to get started. I've told him to pace himself, but I think it's going to be very good for our community.
Now, Chief Holbrook did not say what those problems in the department are, but we do know that this is the city's 8th police chief since 2007, and the city's leadership has been criticized during the search process. But he did say he hopes to get started on his 90-day plan very soon in order to help fix some of these issues in the upcoming years.
That's great. Thanks so much, Brittany.
You're welcome.
Well, the South Carolina Senate passed Emma's Law yesterday, a bill that would put new restrictions on convicted drunk drivers. The final vote was 40-0. The bill will now head to Governor Nikki Haley for her final approval. If approved, it will require drivers convicted of a DUI with a blood alcohol content of 0.15 or higher to have an interlock ignition installed in their car. The law requires first-time offenders to have the lock for 6 months, 2 years for a second offense, and 4 years on the third. A group of strippers is suing several nightclubs in Columbia and Greenville. 3 Midland strippers say they weren't paid according to federal standards and are suing the operators of Heartbreakers Gentlemen's Club and Platinum Plus earlier this year. A lawsuit was filed in federal court accusing the clubs of violating minimum wage and overtime. Regulations were in the Fair Labor Standards Act. Club operators say the dancers were independent contractors and were paid fairly. A Springdale woman said she was sexually assaulted by a man impersonating a police officer last October, but police now say she was lying. Officials say they analyzed the crime scene and exhausted video surveillance, and after interviewing hundreds of possible witnesses, nothing confirmed the woman's story after re-questioning the woman who reported the assault on Thursday. She did not dispute the officer's points, and she quickly ended the interview. Springdale police say it's unclear if charges will be filed.
The search continues today for a man who possibly fell off the Gervais Street Bridge. Gervais Street was closed yesterday for several hours while police and fire officials searched the area. Catherine Ramirez has more as the search continues.
Police
Police believe 2 reports of a man falling off of the bridge and struggling in the current are true, but no evidence has been found yet. Sergeant Rhett Bickley is one of the divers continuing the search today.
We have an area that we feel that we can search, but when we tried to put divers in the water yesterday, the current with the recent rains and the water that Lake Murray was pushing for power generation, we just weren't able to get a diver down to the bottom based on the excessive current.
The water was up to this step yesterday, nearly 3 feet higher than it is today at the bottom of the stairwell. Early this morning, SCE&G turned down the amount of water running through the dam and down the river to make it easier on divers to find the man. Bickley says that the different conditions will help with the success of the search.
Also, the change in water flows has the water clarity different. There's about 3 feet more visibility today on our side of the river, which will be the side we're searching mainly, than there was yesterday.
Bickley is hopeful that being able to put divers on the bottom of the river today will lead to some answers.
And based on visibility, lower flow, and just general conditions, I think that we should be able to have some success today.
They will continue the search until sunset. Catherine Ramirez, Carolina News.
We will keep you updated as the search on the Congaree continues. Our weatherman, Paul Kritzman, was outside earlier checking up on the field at Williams-Brice for tomorrow. Let's see how it looks.
Kathleen, Emily, it looks great out here. The garnet black lines are painted, the end zones are painted. It's going to be a fantastic weekend for the spring game. Chris has more about that in sports. As far as me, the weather will also be fantastic. Highs in the 80s, and that continues throughout the weekend and into next week. A couple bumps later on, but I'll tell you more about that later in the full forecast.
A field trip for high school students planning for college ended in a horrific crash in Northern California. 10 people were killed and over 20 more were injured in Orlando after a FedEx truck crossed a median and slammed head-on into a bus packed with students. Onlookers were terrified, saying the crash immediately caused a fire that engulfed the truck and bus.
Clipped a white car that is further in the ditch up there, sideswiped it, went head-on with the charter bus. Immediate explosion. There are 44 students, 3 chaperones, and the school bus driver on board, so 48 people.
5 students, 3 chaperones, and the bus driver and truck driver were killed. The aftershocks have subsided in Los Angeles after a 5.1 earthquake that damaged much of the LA area last month. But here in South Carolina, we're no strangers to earthquakes either. In the last 2 months, South Carolina has experienced two small earthquakes, and experts fear a big one is not far. Our Rebecca Ball investigates how real the threat of a major earthquake is closer to home.
Jackie McManus moved to Somerville 2 years ago. On March 19th, a 3.2 magnitude earthquake shook at the Somerville fault line underneath her house. It was McManus's first earthquake.
I was sitting and reading my book at the kitchen table when all of a sudden I heard this loud bang. It sounded like a jet plane breaking the sound barrier.
McManus's house sustained minor damage from the earthquake, including a small crack in her bedroom wall and a large crack in her garage floor. South Carolina has had 16 small earthquakes in the last year. Those earthquakes were nothing compared to the 7.3 magnitude earthquake that devastated Charleston in 1886. 60 people were killed in the earthquake. Property damage was estimated at nearly $6 million, and almost all of the homes were destroyed or severely damaged. It was reported that the quake was felt from Chicago to Cuba. Experts say Charleston will experience a major earthquake within the next 30 years. Unfortunately, that earthquake cannot be detected ahead of time. Eric Becker is the Public Information Coordinator for the South Carolina Emergency Management Division.
Well, a major earthquake centered in Somerville, South Carolina would probably be the single largest disaster this state has ever witnessed.
Becker says if an earthquake with a magnitude of 6.0 or higher were to occur, it would level out Charleston and the surrounding areas.
Were that to happen today, we estimate approximately 45,000 injuries right off the bat, 900 fatalities. Damage to infrastructure would be in the billions and would take us probably 2 decades to recover from.
South Carolina Emergency Management Division urges residents to make a plan ahead of time to be ready in case of a major earthquake. McManus says she is now making a plan to protect her home in case of another earthquake.
I'm going to call my insurance company.
McManus is also making an earthquake survival kit so that she will be ready in case of a devastating earthquake like the one in 1886. In Charleston, Rebecca Ball, Carolina News.
For information on how to prepare for an earthquake or to find or learn more about the impact of a major earthquake and what it would have on South Carolina, visit the South Carolina Emergency Management Division's website at www.scemd.org.
You may now want to think twice before paying for things with your credit card at gas stations, restaurants, and grocery stores. Criminals are becoming more advanced in hacking, putting card users at a bigger risk than ever before. In 2011, hackers stole $2.1 million from gas stations in the South alone. When ordering online, experts recommend using one-time payments so your information is not stored, and regularly check all bank and credit statements. The 8th annual Indie Grits Film Festival kicks off tonight. The festival showcases the city's best culinary, theatric, art, and music talent. Aubrey Marcinko went to the Nickelodeon Theater to find out what's different about this year's event.
Every year, the Indie Grits Film Festival is hosted by the Nickelodeon Theater in historic downtown Columbia. The event is more than a film festival, showcasing chefs, local bands, and artists. Marketing manager Kristen Morris says more than 60 films will play this year, but to be in it, the film has to follow a certain criteria.
To be in Indie Grits, you have to have a film that's about the Southeast or be a filmmaker who's from the Southeast.
Indie Grits also puts on a puppet show called Puppet Slam, but it's not what you might think.
Puppeteers are normally performing for children, and these are like creative, artistic people, and sometimes they want to do things that are a little less child-friendly.
Every year, the Indie Grits Film Festival brings out thousands of people. This year, they're reaching out to a larger audience with Indie Bits, which will be aimed towards gamers.
It's with video gaming and interactive media, which is on Tuesday. So like independent video game developers come and showcase what they've been working on, and we turned the theater lobby right here into an arcade.
Indie Grits has become an experience all its own, and the films you see here, you will not find anywhere else. Aubrey Marcinko, Carolina News.
Indie Grits Film Festival is giving USC students a ticket discount starting this year. Tickets will be $5 for all film screenings. Wow, that looks like so much fun. I want to go.
I do too. I went last year and it was awesome, so.
Oh, well, if you're not doing anything tonight, we should go to the kickoff party.
Perfect. Let's go.
Definitely.
Well, coming up, USC celebrates 50 years of desegregation. Find out how after the break.
Welcome back. 50 years ago, 3 African Americans did not receive warm wishes when they registered for classes at USC. Today, they were honored. Madeline Mann has the story.
Morning. Oh, happy day.
President Pastides welcomed students, faculty, and members of the community to a dedication ceremony for the 1963 Desegregation Commemoration Garden.
We felt it was important to create a permanent place on campus to acknowledge the past while anticipating a better future, one of unity, inclusiveness, and growth.
On September 11, 1963, 3 individuals walked up 9 stairs and into USC history.
To an observer, what must have looked on 9/11/1963 as an easy walk up 9 steps to the front door of the Osborne building might have looked simple, but to those 3 individuals, those 9 steps represented a climb to the mountain top.
Robert G. Anderson, James L. Solomon, and Henry Monteith Treadmill were the first black students admitted to the university. Monteith reflected on her 50-year journey that began when she climbed the steps of the Osborne building to register for classes.
I never thought that I would stand here today. I never even considered that I was walking into history, but in fact, I was.
A moment of silence was held for Robert G. Anderson, who passed away.
The original
original garden was built in 1952 and is approximately 4,500 square feet. The redesign of the garden was inspired by the ideals of communication, equality, and diversity. Henri says she hopes the garden will inspire and motivate others to grow.
History should not be relegated to the past. History is what goes forward. And the beauty in the plants is that things are going forward.
Madeline Mann, Carolina News.
You can attend Our Journey Forward at the Koger Center in Columbia tomorrow at 7:30 p.m.
The first female physician to serve the U.S. House of Representatives spoke about health care at the Columbia Convention Center today. Dr. Donna Christensen talked about the Affordable Care Act at the James E. Clyburn Health Lecture. The lecture focused on the differences in health care between South Carolina and the rest of the country, along with the Affordable Care Act. Christensen spoke about how communities could work with the Affordable Care Act and how the Affordable Care Act has impacted the state of South Carolina positively. If you're deciding whether you'll be going outside this weekend, Paul's here to help.
The weather tonight will be beautiful for something outside, like the Indy Grits opening night party, if that's what you're into. I give you your full forecast next.
Welcome back. We have Paul Kritzman here at the weather. It was absolutely gorgeous today.
Yeah, we can't wait to go to Indy Grits tonight.
Yeah, it's definitely going to be a great night to go out to Indy Grits, or 5 Points, whatever you might be doing. 5 Points right around this afternoon, of course, out at the Hootie and the Blowfish statue, looking great. There is some pollen down here, but better there than on your car. Currently 77 out, 14 mile per hour winds, and I have a feeling that it won't be like that, at least looking like this out in 5 Points later on, but it'll still be beautiful outside, 37% humidity right now. And it's like that pretty much across the state. 72 up in Greenville, 75 in Rock Hill. Mid to upper 70s across the Midlands, and 70 and 71 on the coast. That's due to their cooler coastal winds that we don't really get to enjoy here in Columbia, but 70 in Charleston, so that's nice for them. And the reason for this is this time of year we have a lot of strong highs hanging off the coast, and we have highs coming across the country, and it's creating this stall. And right now we have a stationary front that's hanging out and just keeping the rain away from us. Unfortunately, that has not been the case for all of the country. It's been raining a lot, and from all the rain down the Mississippi, a lot of floods along in Louisiana and Arkansas and Mississippi. In fact, in Jones County, Mississippi, Leaf River is especially high, rose to 28 feet in some places, and is expected to rise more in other locations. You know, that kind of looks like Columbia actually a little bit, but we usually don't have to deal with that unless it's flash flooding, so we're lucky right now. And like I said, so that stationary front dissipates, it's gone. We do have a couple, a warm front here and a cold front here developing, but you've still got some upper level trough and high pressure here that's keeping it nice, at least for the next few days. Some of this will come through and create some rain, but for now, it's looking great. Tonight, a few clouds, but 60 in Myrtle Beach, 61 in Charleston, like I said, cool along the coast, and then 50s pretty much across the state, 45 up in Rock Hill. They're used to being pretty cold up there at night. And tomorrow, 80 in Greenville, 74 in Rock Hill, low 80s throughout the Midlands. And again, the cooler area on the coast, 76 and 75 in Charleston and Myrtle Beach, respectively. Very sunny, so take advantage of that. Go down to the beach for a day trip. I did last weekend, and it was fantastic in Charleston. So I suggest that if you aren't going to Indy Grits or whatever else is going on right now. So for the rest of the week, it continues. 82, 83, Saturday and Sunday. We do have some clouds on Monday, 40% chance of rain, and then thunderstorms potential on Tuesday, 70% chance of rain. But beautiful weather, low of 44 there on Tuesday. There is some colder air coming through, but again, it's going to be pretty much dry. So that's good besides that one little bump there.
Great. I can't wait for this nice warm weekend that we're going to see.
It's fantastic.
Well, perfect. Thanks, Paul. From weather to sports, we have Chris Stanley here. Chris, are you ready for the spring game?
I'm more than ready for some more college football, Emily. Coming up next in sports, we'll see what the HBC had to say about what he expects for his young players in tomorrow's game.
Welcome back. So Chris, the spring game is tomorrow. What's going to be different about this year's game?
Well, no Clowney and no Shaw on the rosters. That's going to be a major identity crisis for South Carolina. Now, how the Gamecocks will go about replacing those guys will be decided tomorrow. It can be argued that never before in the history of Gamecock football has a spring game brought more intrigue than this one happening tomorrow. After 4 long years, quarterback Dylan Thompson will finally get to take center stage as the leader for the Gamecock offense. He'll most likely be opposed by Brendan Nosovich or Connor Mitch, who are battling for the number 2 spot. Defensive end has been up for grabs too, with Chaz Sutton and Jadavion Clowney gone for good. Gerald Dixon has filled in nicely with the spot along with sophomore Mason Harris. Head coach Steve Spurrier is looking forward to seeing what his younger players will be able to do.
Chance for most of the young guys to, show the coaches they can play. Defense only rushed 4 guys, so hopefully we can get off some passes. And guys get a chance to cover, make some interceptions, and hopefully throw and catch some. So looking forward to a good game. Hopefully nobody get hurt.
Kickoff for the spring game is set for noon, and admission is free to the public. Missouri wide receiver Dorial Green Beckham was dismissed today, 4 days after an alleged breaking and entering incident occurred on a Missouri apartment complex. The former number 1 recruit caught 12 touchdowns for the Tiger last year, including 1 against the Gamecocks. And while the Gamecock football team will be taking the field tomorrow, there'll be plenty of other Gamecock teams playing in big games later on today. In tennis, both the men and women start their final regular season weekend today when they take on Kentucky. The men will be in Lexington while the ladies will be playing in Columbia. Baseball gets a shot to be the outright SEC East Division leader this weekend when they take on number 24 Florida. Jordan Montgomery is projected to get the start for the Gamecocks. And in softball, the ladies travel to Fayetteville to take on Arkansas in a crucial SEC series that could put the team over 500 in conference for the first time this season. And 1 weekend out of the year, South Carolina becomes the destination for NASCAR fans around the country. The track that's too tough to tame is back. Nicknamed the Lady in Black, the track at Darlington, South Carolina has been a menace to stock car drivers for over 60 years due to its inverted backside turns, forcing drivers to hug the wall at nearly 180 miles an hour. The nationwide series race will start at 8 tonight, while the big boys of the Sprint Cup will start their engines tomorrow at 6:30. Current points leader Jeff Gordon has won 7 times at the track, second most in NASCAR history. And currently over at Augusta National, 2012 champion Bubba Watson is currently in the lead after a nice 4 under par performance today to have a 7 under par lead for the tournament. Let me tell you what, every time I watch golf, I just want to crack open a can of Arnold Palmer, kick off my shoes, and relax.
I don't watch golf, thanks, Chris. Well, coming up, see a group that tries to escape and is tricked into coming back home by their sweet tooth. You've probably heard of monkey see, monkey do. Chimps in the Kansas City Zoo followed the same saying and almost escaped because of it. The zookeepers say they think one chimp took a log and used it to climb on. He then lured 6 other chimps up with him. It took the zoo more than an hour to contain them, but with the help of the malted milk balls, all of the chimps are back in their exhibit.
Wow, that is one smart chimp.
They said that they were so strong they could just rip down trees and kind of get out.
Well, at the same time, if all they need is malted milk balls, I guess Planet of the Apes is never going to happen anytime soon.
Definitely
well,
not.
If we want to take one more look at weather.
Yeah, like I said, it's going to be beautiful. 80s and then 70s starting next week. And it gets a little bit cooler. Wednesday 69 with a low before that of 44. So cooler air into next week. But as far as the weekend and the next couple of days, it's going to be nice. Just have an umbrella on Tuesday.
Wow, well, I cannot wait for this warm weather and dry weekend. It's going to be beautiful.
Excellent stuff, guys.
Great. Well, that's all the time we have today. Thanks so much for being with us.
See you tomorrow. Have a great evening.